Welcome to Galactic Grandmother, Heart to Heart. My name is April, and my special guest today is John Farris. John is a visionary artist. He makes one-of-a-kind, beautiful jewelry that's celebrated worldwide by his clients, but he's also participated in the Academy Awards, and he was a finalist in the Jewels contest at the 2019 Milan Fashion Week, which is spectacular. I was very impressed by John's jewelry that he took to that Milan Fashion Week. I know you're a busy man, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me, John. Welcome.
Honored, April. Thanks so much for having me, and can't wait to share a little bit about my story and my path. What would you like to begin with?
I would like to get to know you, John, and I would like to know more about your spiritual journey during your life that brought you to the point where you started making this beautiful jewelry.
Oh, interesting. So, I grew up in a family that was Methodist Christianity and was super Christian up until about the 10th grade. And that shifted when I went to high school and had to have a different path at that point in my life. And I really feel like my journey, I've always somewhat been connected after that, but I really found a big shift in my life when I went to Alaska. I used to be a chef. I went to cooking school in New York and went on to follow a path with the culinary arts, which led me to being an executive chef at a fishing lodge in Alaska, of all places. These high-end fishing lodges that were remote. And one of the years that I was up there, I was working at Lake Clark in Port Allsworth, and this lake is just gorgeous. The state park alone is over 4 million acres, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
The lake was 2 miles wide by 30 miles, which emptied into an even bigger lake. I had a very busy schedule during the day, but it stays light in the evening till about 1 o'clock in the morning
Oh,
during the summertime. So I get everything done and wrap everything up around 10 o'clock in the evening. And this particular evening, me and my buddy decided to take two flatboat. He was in one flatboat with a 40 horsepower, and I was in a different boat with 40 horsepower. And the lake was just pure glass. I mean, it
mm,
was no waves. It was mirror flat. And so we took off from the lodge and we're cruising in the boat at full speed. He was beside me, and we are just going to this fishing hole that we both knew of, and just a happy-go-lucky time at that point. But there was a point when my boat started to wobble a little bit, and it happened so fast that there was no reaction. The boat completely did a 180 on the water.
oh,
And at that moment, I mean, if I had a flipped, I probably would have been killed. But at that moment, when the boat was turning this 180, I clearly remember how do you say that? The music of the spheres, the celestial music. And that just overcame me as I was doing this 180 in like 2 seconds or so. And that really shifted me to realize that there was some higher power
mhm.
that I hadn't tapped into in a long time that basically turned this into a miracle and saved my life. And from that point in time, I made some major life changes, really hunkered down. I started reading books like Barbara Marciniak's
Uh-huh.
Palladian series and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I was just really thirsty for knowledge. And that really oriented me to a new way of relating to spirit and spirituality. And so I just continued that path, got out of the cooking industry altogether, and I was living on the East Coast at that time. And I decided I had this soul calling to move to Humboldt County in the Redwoods.
Oh, yes.
And I was very passionate about growing medical marijuana at that point in time. And so I moved up there and became very successful at it. I lived in the Redwoods and I never thought I'd leave there. But in 2008, I became extremely allergic to even touching the plant. So it was like, oh my gosh. And at that point, 2008, I started asking Spirit for a new path because I was just miserable. I was like wearing a respirator all the time and dealing with that. And I just like, okay, I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. Actually, 2 years went by. Maybe my ears were clogged or something like that, and I didn't hear anything. But it was, but this whole jewelry path that I got started on started by an kind of an accident or a prompting from the universe. I Jewelry was not on my radar. It wasn't anything that I was inclined to do or anything like that. But there was this one day that I went into a friend's boutique in the town that I lived in, and I saw this most beautiful amulet. It was silver, sweeping silver curls with these tourmalines in it. And I just fell in love with this piece and I laid down the cash for it. And I was so entranced by this thing. I couldn't put it down. I about slept with the thing, you know. I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And the following day, she was a friend of mine. She called me up. She's like, Farris, you got to bring that back. That wasn't for sale. It was my partner's. You need to bring it back. And I was heartbroken. It really super upset me. And I took it back. And that was the impetus. I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to make one of these for myself. And I self-taught myself from some guy's website and went down to the bead shop and got the tools and the wire and whatnot. And every day I was so passionate about it. Every day seemed like Christmas to me. I mean, I didn't want to go to bed at night. I got up and got my chores done and kept doing it. And within a month, I realized that I had this gift for it. And like I said, I just couldn't stop doing it. And people around town started buying them. And I was like, I'll build a website. And built the website. Nameless Light Creations was my first website that I built with a web designer that I was friends with in town. And just to kind of not gloss over how that happened. Like if I had been able to keep that amulet, I would have never started doing jewelry. So it was this prompting, this breadcrumb from the universe to begin this path with this. And so with this website, I was basically done living in Humboldt at that time. I was really wanting to leave. A chapter was over for me. And so I started shooting out all these emails around the country in New York and Aspen and San Francisco and places like that. And nobody was picking me up. So I'd send probably 5 to 10 emails out to different galleries and nobody was picking me up. And I was like, shoot, I got a beautiful website. I know I have this gift. And then somebody's like, dude, you're making crystal amulets. Find a spiritual town to reach out to. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about Sedona because I'd helped a friend move here 17 years prior to that. And so I was like, okay, I sent a bunch of emails out and I got picked up in a gallery here in Sedona. And I was so excited about that. And I proposed to them that I would come out and do a trunk show. And if I don't know if everybody knows what a trunk show is, but it's where an artist shows up at the gallery, shows his work, and people can meet him and see the things like that. And I basically I set this up, but I was having a little bit of hard time financially at that point, and I only had enough money to come out here. It was like this big trust. I bought a house in Humboldt, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I drove out here one way, trusted that I was being guided because it felt so right for me to do that. I got out here and was able to sell. It brought some marijuana with me and somebody bought that. So it was like within a half an hour, I was okay to drive back at any point. So that took the pressure off of everything. And then I realized I want to move to Sedona. I mean, when I came here and came through Oak Creek Canyon, it just brought tears to my eyes. It just felt like I could breathe. I felt like I was home. So at that point, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my house? And I had some friends. They're like, you got this great grow shop in the back of your yard. Here is your mortgage in cash, $25,000 to get a start a new life. And so these major doors opened for me, and I knew that I had been aligned with my higher purpose or my calling, or however you want to say that.
Hmm.
And so I made the shift to come out here, eventually sold the house. One thing that was running through my mind was, weed is easy to sell. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Came out here, I was like, my amulets are going to be selling just like I was making that kind of money back home. And that wasn't the case at all. And I was like, oh my gosh. So what Sedona taught me was that through my jewelry, I was needing to learn lessons about my self-worth and my value. And it's interesting because I had another hard time out here where I couldn't afford housing and had to live in my truck for a little bit. And I was so dedicated to my craft and making this work that I was like, nope, I'm not getting a job. I'm going to make this happen and make it work. So I trusted that and went through a summer here in Sedona in the heat outside. But
Ooh.
I started doing shows and things picked up. I was never really on the internet until 2010 when I eventually moved out here. I started a Facebook page. I started doing that, and people really responded well. And in the beginning, I'd post something and it would sell within 15 minutes or so. So I just kept refining my craft and trusting this path. Being an entrepreneur or a artist takes a lot of trust, and there's these peaks and valleys that happen, and they're natural probably
Mhm.
for just about anything. But I realized that to trust that process of when it was slow, I'd take some time off or just relax and kind of ease back on the throttle, and then started doing bigger shows, which allowed me more financial freedom. I don't always seem to do really good at shows in person with people, and have since realized that the amulets that I create, I'll just pull one up here. Here's this is a
Ooh,
dragon Vogel,
beautiful.
and I've since learned that the coils that I make here
Hmm.
and the weaves amplify the frequency of the crystal. And I
Oh.
can't tell you how many countless people can actually feel the tangible feelings of vitality, harmony, and some people can't. So I took the liberty of doing some aura photos, before and after shot with my amulets. And this is a before shot of my
Hmm.
aura. Not bad, not bad. But this is uh,
Oh,
a
wow.
picture of my aura with an amulet on it. So I know that
Wow.
like I said, the coils and the weaves are amplifying the frequency of the crystal, and each one has its own flavor or vibration to it. And I believe that there's all the pieces that I've made go to somebody special out there that's really ready for their next level of their life. Do you have
Wow.
any thoughts or questions?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, what are you wearing? Is it solid gold?
This is a Palladian healing disc, and it was made by a very smart man, an inventor, Patrick Flanagan. And this actually has a really interesting story to it because I had seen one of these. It's actually supposed to hang like that, but I'd seen one
Ooh,
of these at a
yeah.
show a long time ago, and the guy couldn't tell me where he got it. And I was like, "Oh my God, I love that! I love the energy of this thing." It's this one actually has aquamarine in it,
Hmm.
and
I
see
love
if you can.
aquamarine. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And a couple years later, I was doing a show down on the creek with a new friend of mine, Suzanne Ross, and this guy showed up, Rob Potter, who actually had a table full of them. And I was like, "Oh my God!" So I'd finally connected with this piece, and of course, put my own wrappings on it. And it's definitely my favorite personal piece. It really brings me a lot of joy and harmony.
Did Rob make them?
They're probably made somewhere. This one's 18 karat gold. I don't think it's solid 18 karat gold, but
Hmm.
it's got that on the outside, and it's got this really fascinating. Uh, I don't know if you can see that on the back, but there's these really fast. It almost looks like two little crop circles that are on the back of this thing.
Oh,
So
wow. pretty.
Yes.
As you've been working with the crystals, and you said they all have their own flavor, tell me what you've learned about the crystals. Now, I've heard that crystals definitely are conscious beings, like other things in nature, like plants and trees and so the water, obviously. What can you tell me about the nature of crystals?
I believe that they're the most ancient beings on the planet, up to 500 million years old. What's fascinating is they don't die. Sometimes they break or whatnot, but they continue being conscious beings and even grow. I brought crystals home and see them from the store, and I've seen them actually transform and grow a little bit or get rainbows in them. And they're what crystals are really good at, because they're conscious, is they hold intentions, they hold prayers, they hold energy programs, they bundle that information and then transmit it. And each one, like I said, has its own frequency. One of the big questions that people ask me is, well, where do you get your crystals from? Is one. And Sedona's full of crystal shops, and we've got the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show down in Tucson. But my process with choosing a crystal, I really feel like they choose me, right? So I'll go down to the store or go to this gem show, and there'll be a whole bunch of quartz points that they're all the same kind of crystal, but there'll be that few or that one that just catches my eye and really speaks to me. I wouldn't say like I can't hear them talk, but I can feel them. They have transmitted something that caught my attention, that resonated with my frequency field. And so I'll bring that home. They're our allies. They don't heal us, but they almost hold our hand and keep us going. Like I was showing with the aura photos, they really amplify. I'd love to get some aura photos with just crystals and do a before and after and see that response, but I haven't done that yet. The process that I use to create these amulets has been the same ever since I started. I'm not making any design plans, never made a drawing. Process is where I will get in
Wow.
my studio and just hold the crystal, be holding the crystal, and then I'll start getting information. And it's not the whole design at one time. It's just it's part by part. All the coils, I make one at a time, and the weaves are hand spun. So I listen to that guidance. And it's interesting, April, when I first started doing this, I'd start on a piece and I listen to the guidance, and I'm like, oh my God, that doesn't look so good. And I'm like, oh, where's this going? And then this word would come to me, and that was just trust. Okay, just trust.
Oh,
And so I would follow that and keep going. And then a couple of moves later, it would come out so beautiful, something I never could have imagined or dreamt up. I've never really labeled or asked where this information comes from. Some people think it's Arcturian technology. Some people think it's 5D code stepping down and threw me into 3D. But I just kind of keep it pure. I don't put the labels on it. I don't make those claims. And I feel like that every artist, when they tap into creativity, maybe it's this field that there's a creative field out there somewhere, and people just tap into it, and then the same creative energy flow is comes through them, but it's different for everybody because everybody's got a different frequency. So I find that fascinating. And back to crystals, I mean, each one, there's like, for example, this amethyst piece here. So we're dealing with a quartz crystal that has been altered in nature. And like moldavite has a green color, this one has a purple color, and that factors into the frequency because, color therapy is a real thing.
right.
So that's why people are attracted to the red rocks here, because that's a frequency of its own. And jungles have their own frequency because it's very
Mhm.
green and very vibrant. So that's a fascinating aspect as well.
It is. It is. I just love the jewelry, and it's hard to find one particular color that's my favorite because every time you show a new piece on Facebook, I love it.
That's awesome, April. I really appreciate that.
You probably have people that come to you or contact you and say, I just found the most beautiful crystal. And can you make a design for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing custom work. That's another part of my process where if I'm making a piece just to put online or just by myself, I kind of keep it neutral as far as intentions go. But if a client reaches out, that'll be part of the process where I'll ask them some questions about what their intentions are. Do they have a favorite crystal? And part when I'm working with a client, I have this gift of being able to tune into, they've told me their intentions and prayers, and then I can tune into their higher self. And that actually is helping me guide the design and get that information of the codes and frequencies that will best benefit them. But when I'm in my studio, I'm really concentrating on, like when I'm spinning out some wire, I'm really holding that intention. So that is infused into the wires as well as the crystal. So the whole thing is custom tailored to what they want and what they need. And I feel that people that come to me to either buy one or have one custom created, it's a it's a their talisman, it's a doorway to their next becoming. It's not jewelry, is I guess the basic definition of them is, but they're way more than that. They're activational tools that
Mhm.
amplify your field.
Right. I feel like what you're doing is a form of healing or activation because you're right. Everything is energy. And when someone is resonating with one of your pieces and they bring it into their field, it's definitely going to affect them and activate things, their energy within them. It's no
Indeed.
accident that they find your pieces.
Yeah, they're not for everybody, but the people that step forward, it's definitely, I'd almost want to say life-changing. It really ups their energy, gives them this, like I said, tangible feeling of wellness and harmony and vitality.
I do work with crystals when I do quantum clearings and revitalization. I'll have the client lying on their back. And the most recent one I did, I lie the crystals across certain points on their body, and the crystals tell me where they want to go. When I take them out of my bag, they'll let me know if they want the right hand, the left hand, over the solar plexus. And this one crystal, to me, like it, I don't know if you can see that. It was kind of big. But I kept getting that it wanted to go right on her throat. And I said, I
Okay.
don't know if this is going to be too heavy, but I get the feeling that it needs to go on your throat. She says, oh no, just go ahead and put it there. And I said, well, adjust it and make it comfortable. She put it on her throat, and immediately she said, I could tell a difference in the tone of my voice, her speaking. And come to find out, she had had some surgeries on her throat, on her vocal cords. And the crystal,
Wow.
she immediately felt the frequency affect her vocal cords.
Incredible.
Yeah, she could feel it, she could hear it. My voice, the tone has changed.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really cool that you listen to your guidance because they're definitely allies for us. When we listen and listen to that intuition, it always comes out good.
Do you have a process that you use to cleanse crystals? Do you put them in the sun or put them in out for the moonlight, or just being in your studio and in that energy you think is good?
Yeah, I feel like my process with that is when I bring a crystal home, I will just run it under tap water and then have that intention that it's getting cleared and cleaned because crystals definitely pick up ambient energies.
Uh-huh.
And I recommend that people clear their crystals once a month because of the stagnant energy or accumulated energy because they're definitely absorbing everything
Mm.
and especially if they're like let's say they have a an amulet and they're going through a tough time, it's definitely recommended to keep it clear at least once a month. There's many ways to clear a crystal. I like running water. Some people use smudge or a singing bowl. When they're working with that, it's always good to have that intention that it's getting cleared and cleaned and do that for a couple of minutes or something. Turn it into a little bit of a ritual. Now on to charging the crystal. Sun charging is really great. I would do morning hours, not afternoon hours when it's super intense because you don't want to crack the crystal, or some crystals are sensitive like fluorite or amethyst to sunlight. Moonlight is another way to charge crystals, which was a much more yin energy, and you don't have to put it outside. If you put it even in a windowsill, the lunar energies will still transmit through the glass. Another process of clearing the crystal is you can put it in a dry cloth or something like that and bury it on the land. And
Oh,
I've
yeah.
done that for people.
Hmm.
I've done that for people where I'll finish a piece for them. Okay, I'm feeling guided to take this on the land and mail it to you in a couple of days. I have this one tree it's almost like a grandmother tree,
Uh-huh.
and I'll put it in there and put some rocks on it so it's hidden, and then come back a couple of days, and then it's charged with Sedona energy. So that's a wonderful way to clear and charge
Wow.
the crystals. And then as far as programming the crystals is a very easy process, very simple. Just you holding the crystal in your hand and then speaking your prayers out loud and doing some visualizations that the crystal is absorbing the intentions and prayers is a great way to kind of program them or infuse them with your prayers.
Hmm.
Do you have some techniques?
Many of the ones you've already spoken about, yes.
Nice.
I think our consciousness, if we had nothing else but our consciousness, that would be enough to clear and program the crystals. Is there a particular experience that you've had or that a client's had with one of your amulets that stands out to you about how powerful those crystals can be?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's not just one, but a kind of a theme that happens, especially when I'm at a show. Someone will come up. I'll say, look at all the crystals, and if one's jumping out at you, I'd love to put it in your hand. And the invitation would be to put it on your chest, near
Uh-huh.
your heart, and see what reaction you had. And the theme is I've had people start crying. Not everybody does that. There's certain people that they'll be moved to tears when they hold an amulet.
Oh,
Or another example is they're like, wow, I can really feel tingling in my crown chakra or my heart or my throat. And so this theme of people's very visceral experiences has transcended the years. It's happened more times than I can realize. And there's some people that haven't really tuned their feeling sense or their psychic powers, and they don't really feel them that much. But everybody's different. I love the ones that just are like, wow, oh my God, I can really feel that. It
yes.
really warms my heart.
Lemurian crystals, in particular, some of the crystals hold information for us that I've heard if you meditate with them, that you can have information downloaded to you. Do you know anything about that?
I do. I'm going to grab this crystal that I have right here. This one was a total impulse buy off the internet, but this is a Lemurian crystal here,
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell a Lemurian by it has almost like I don't know if you can see those lines, the striations on the side
Uh-huh.
there. It's almost
Yeah.
like a barcode, and you can. I've heard the technique of meditating with them, and really going like put yourself into the crystal and ask the crystal to download information to you. That's a great way to connect with that. And some crystals, this would be kind of hard to see, but there's like a little indentation right here, and it's like hexagon shape, and it goes into the crystal a little ways, and that's called a key. So you can if you find one with a little indentation that looks really kind of geometric, you can access the crystal through that point there while you're holding it. And then another way is if you can a technique is if you run your fingers over those lines, it'll make some noise, and that's almost like light language, if you will.
Oh,
When they grow, it's almost like a mother's womb. It's very similar. There's somehow a crack or a crevice happens in the earth, and this highly mineralized, warm, hot solution flows into it. And then it's like growing a salt crystal, right? So you put it in a solution with a bunch of salt, and then it gathers around the string and begins to grow geometrically that way. And that's the same process in the earth. So I find that fascinating that there's some parallels with how a woman carries a child in this warm solution in her womb, and then it's birthed out into the earth.
You have had such a wonderful, transformative spiritual journey to get to where you are now. Do you have any message for the audience that you think would be important for them to hear right now? Especially, it's kind of chaotic in our world nowadays.
I think humanity is definitely going through some growing pains, and I think there's a theme of transition, either people's lives or their life that's pushing them to go in a different direction and not stay in homeostasis or stay in the safe zone. And one thing that I want to communicate is that I shared through my story is that I knew I needed to make a change. Yeah, it took a couple of years for that to kind of ground in. It was more than likely divine timing. I wasn't ready before that, but I trusted that, okay, I need to take this leap. And it's scary. There's no landing pad on the other side. I just have to take the leap, jump over a cliff, and you're holding on to a vine, and there's no way back up and no way back down. So you just got to let go. It's like you just have to take that leap. What I like to say is if you're getting an impetus to make the change, trust that that's coming from your higher self, and change doesn't happen actually overnight. You have to take the action steps and commit to it. Some people will give up before they hit the gold mine. So just keep going, keep trusting, know that you're being guided, and make the jump if you trust it.
Beautiful. And the I Ching has a saying that perfectly describes what you're talking about. It's jumping into the void. You are jumping into the unknown on faith that your higher self, your higher consciousness is leading you on your path. And our little selves may not know how it's going to work out, but that's
Yeah.
beautiful turning point in our spiritual journey that I think most of us have had to make that jump.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit of an initiation, but once you get to the other side, it's like all these little synchronicities turn into breadcrumbs, and you look back and you're like, how did I get here? I just followed this next little step, took the action steps to get there, and it turned out
Well,
great.
thank you so much. I've really appreciated getting to know you, hearing about your own personal journey and how you create these works of art. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful for your contribution to the collective consciousness. So,
Thank you, April.
thank you
Thanks for
so
all you do
much.
as well.
Oh,
A lot of respect for you.
oh, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye bye.